The right to care as an effective means of counteracting loneliness of elderly people. For a long time, we have been observing in Poland the process of changing the demographic structure of the population, which results from the extension of average life expectancy and the decline in fertility. As rightly emphasized by Professor Pikowa in article Loneliness or Social Exclusion of Elderly People, the modern world has been inscribed in a smooth change. The pace of changes we are witnessing has a significant impact on the quality of life and also shows how progress affects their social situation. The changes in the demographic structure of the population are undoubtedly noticeable changes. The societies of rapidly developing countries have become old societies. According to the forecast of the Central Statistics Office, the number of people aged 60 and over in Poland is expected to increase to 11 million in 2030 and to 14 million in 2050. Elderly people will most probably constitute approximately 40% of total population of Poland. The ongoing demographic changes resulting in an aging society lead to an increase in the incidence of chronic diseases and disabilities. This leads to the necessity to face the growing, not only in the field of healthcare, but also in the field of care services. As aptly noted in the document of the Ministry of Family and Social Policy entitled Program for the Development of Family Care Homes, 2024 edition, the inevitability of demographic process makes the development of social services in the local environment a necessity. The effectiveness of the support system in the future will depend on the actions taken now. Old age is associated with many dysfunctions resulting from the aging process. Moreover, it is associated with the loss of the loved ones. It is marked with the stigma of dying, not only in the physical sense, but also in the sense of social relations. In addition, there are difficulties in communicating with the younger generation, lack of time on the part of the younger ones for the elderly, loss of the loved ones, friends and work income. These are often the causes of loneliness and social exclusion of seniors. This condition adversely affects the quality of life of elderly people. Hence, social bonds play an extremely important role in this final stage of life. Loneliness is an unpleasant experience that occurs when there is a deficit, both qualitative and quantitative, in a person's network of social relationships. Moreover, loneliness is caused not by simply being alone, but by living without some specific relationships or group of relationships necessary in life. Loneliness always manifests itself as a response to the lack of a specific type of relationship, or more precisely, as a response to the lack of a specific type of relationship security. Loneliness is therefore defined as an exceptionally unpleasant and focused experience associated with insufficient satisfaction of the need for human intimacy and interpersonal closeness. The way to counteract this phenomenon is to implement two provisions of the Constitution of the Republic of Poland. Provision number 1. Specified in Article 67, the right to social security, understood comprehensively, sensu largo, not only as the right to a pension. Quote, a citizen shall have the right to social security whenever incapacitated for work by reason of sickness or invalidism, as well as having attained retirement age. The scope and forms of social security shall be specified by statute." End of quote. In this area, the development of social care homes, day care centers for seniors, etc., is particularly important in a rule of law state. In a rule of law state, cases of elderly people suffering in solitude in apartment blocks without a lift, trapped within their own four walls, should be systematically eliminated. As Professor Garlicki points out, even though this constitutional right to social security, also for elderly people, is recognized as a subjective right, both in our constitution and in the constitutions of the countries of our region, these are usually formulations that are much more restrained than in the previous political area. It is also dominant that the Act is entrusted with defining the specific shape of the law in question. The quoted author emphasizes, following the Constitutional Tribunal, that the social security covers all benefits that are granted from public funds to a citizen in need. However, this provision did not notice the differentiation of the basic techniques for implementing this security. That is, no distinction was made between social insurance, social security, and social assistance. Thus, the specificity of social insurance as a system based on the reciprocity of benefits and not on one-sided social solidarity has been lost. End of quote. The content of the right of social security is to guarantee every citizen benefits in the case of, among others, reaching retirement age. Therefore, this provision requires the legislator to specify, among others, the concept of retirement age, that is, the creation of, quote, legal infrastructure for a social security system, end of quote. And provision number 2, stated in Article 69 of the Constitution, the right to assistance in securing existence. Quote, public authorities shall provide, in accordance with statute, aid to disabled persons to ensure their subsistence, adaptation to work and social communication. Unlike the previous provision, the one currently being analyzed formulates the principle of state policy and does not take the form of a subjective law. This is evidenced primarily by the way this provision is drafted, indicating specific obligations on the part of public authorities, but not mentioning any right to. And although the allegation of violation only of Article 69 cannot be made directly the subject of a constitutional complaint, unless in conjunction with Article 67 and 68 of the Constitution. However, it formulates specific tasks for state authorities. The content of the obligation arising from this provision is to provide assistance to disabled people, including elderly people who are unable to live independently, so that they can lead a life in society which, as Professor Banaszek and Professor Jabłoński rightly emphasize, is, quote, one of the necessary conditions for respecting for human dignity, end of quote. Therefore, the provision of Article 69 is directly related to Article 30 of the Constitution. Quote, the inherent and inalienable dignity of the person shall constitute a source of freedoms and rights of persons and citizens. It shall be inviolable. The respect and protection, therefore, shall be the obligation of public authorities. Creating decent living conditions for people with disabilities, including in particular for the elderly, should be treated, as Professor Garlicki rightly emphasizes, as a special constitutional value. We also cannot fail to notice that the more society ages, the fewer young people there are, the more elderly people there are, the fewer multi-generational families there are. For many seniors, this means loneliness, exclusion, mental and physical suffering, and general misery. As a result, there is a real lack of opportunities to fully enjoy the freedoms and rights they are entitled to. In such a situation, the only effective solution is the promotion and development of stationary social welfare facilities, including family care homes, but especially social welfare homes, which guarantee the most comprehensive care for seniors. It is in such facilities that loneliness and exclusion can be most effectively combated. It is in such facilities that seniors receive the best care and medical care. After all, it is there that they make the most of cultural and social life, especially when the alternative is living alone on high floors in blocks of flats without a lift, a lack of time and caregiving skills of a few close family members, not to mention the pathology of indifference and alcoholism in the family, which is also unfortunately not uncommon. Thank you for your attention.